A warm spring morning in Osterley, West London. Children at a local sports club have come together to mark the end of their hockey season. The sound of stick against ball and children's cries to one another are only drowned out by the intermittent sound of aeroplanes as they make their descent into nearby Heathrow Airport. Standing proudly on the edge of the hockey, cricket and football fields is the Indian Gymkhana Clubhouse. Like many clubs up and down the UK, Indian Gymkhana Club provides a place for children and adults from all walks of life to come together. However, unlike many clubs, its idyllic setting today belies a history strewn with struggle, sweat, and ultimately success. A history that spans continents and 100 years. A history that has produced the largest and longest-running multiracial community sports club in the UK. This film documents events in Indian Gymkhana's Centenary year, 2016. But to understand the club today, we must first understand the club's beginnings. England, 1916. The country is in the grips of World War I, with the year seeing the introduction of military conscription and attacks on British shores by the German Air Force and Navy. Before the year is out, the Battle of the Somme would see more than 1 million soldiers lose their lives, including over 19,240 soldiers from the British Empire in one day alone. Around 1.3 million Indian soldiers served during the Great War, with over 74,000 losing their lives on far-flung shores, far away from their families and loved ones. India was at that time under British rule, and fears over a revolt in India were soon forgotten, with Indian soldiers fighting bravely alongside their colonial rulers. In December that year, Herbert Henry Asquith resigned as British Prime Minister and was replaced by David Lloyd George. It was against this backdrop that the Indian Gymkhana Club would be born. The majority of Indians that came to Britain between 1890 and the 1930s were from the higher echelons of Indian society, including royalty. Many had come to study in the world-class educational institutions that Britain had to offer. Far away from home, they longed to pursue familiar pastimes and passions, including sport. Determined to play cricket, the visitors and some like-minded British counterparts undertook to form their own club, the Indian Gymkhana Club. In December 1916, a general meeting was held, inaugurating the club and laying down a draft constitution, with relevant officers being appointed to key roles. No one would have imagined that the seeds that they had planted that winter would continue to flourish over the next 100 years. 100 years that would bring with it many joys, but also many challenges. Spring 2016. The club's children's hockey training session feels no different to any other. However, all the club's activity this year has a very special significance as Indian Gymkhana marks its centenary year. The session allows children, parents and the club's coaches to all come together in a fun day following the end of another hockey season. The session is followed by an awards presentation celebrating the many youth hockey teams at the club and to thank the many coaches, without whom running the teams would not be possible. The development of all youth sections across the club has taken on a renewed impetus in this special year, with a push towards maintaining a steady flow of talent through the club ranks and to allow for the club's continued success.
I personally am very proud of what we've achieved, and I'm very proud of everyone here who's involved in the section as a community. And I just hope that you will all grow with us and continue and come back next season. Please.
Lord Martin Bladen Hawke succeeded his father as 7th Baron Hawke of Towton in 1887. Eton educated, Lord Hawke possessed a keen interest and talent for cricket. This would in time make him one of the most successful county cricket captains of all time, captaining Yorkshire between 1883 and 1910. His playing days were not, however, confined to England, but included tours to Australia, the West Indies, and India. Lord Hawke would in time become an influential figure in cricket administration, being elected Yorkshire Club President in 1898. Having retired from playing, he was also elected President of the MCC in 1914 and appointed as its Honorary Treasurer in 1932. As a key advocate for establishing the Indian Gymkhana Club, he also served as its first president in 1916. With no facilities of its own, access to grounds posed a challenge for the Indian Gymkhana Club in its formative years. In 1917, club officials visited a number of grounds with a view to securing access, finally deciding to lease from the Mill Hill Park Cricket Club its grounds in Acton, West London. The cost of securing the grounds for the summer and winter months was £60 and £40 respectively. Under the terms of the lease, Indian Gymkhana would be responsible for maintaining the site and appointing a groundsman, a role into which James Wootton, a Kent County bowler, was duly appointed. On May 12, 1917, Indian Gymkhana played its first cricket match at its new ground, being led out by its captain, K.S. Partab Singh Garji, a nephew of His Highness Sir Ranjit Singh Ji, the ruler of Nawanagar state in India. The assembled guests on that day were to witness the first win by the club in its new ground. On the 11th of August the same year, the club played a charity match against an Australian team, resulting in MP Bajana, an ex-Somerset County cricketer, scoring the club's first century on the ground. A writer, signing off as a lover of sport, recorded this and other events in the early years of the Indian Gymkhana Club.
The captain led his men to the field to give a rousing ovation to the Indian team who, with equal enthusiasm, responded, the stirring incident being followed by the singing of the national anthem.
The writer further noted that the match raised £140, worth almost £11,000 today, for the widows and orphans of firemen and stokers of both services, and that the reigning monarch, King George V, expressed his pleasure with the spirit prompting Indians and Australians to play for such a worthy cause. Indian Gymkhana played 22 cricket matches in 1917, winning 13, losing 6 and drawing 3. These included matches at the Lord's Cricket Ground and the Oval. 1917 also saw lawn tennis, football and hockey being introduced to the club, with Sir James Walker CIE gifting a challenge cup to the club for lawn tennis, the Walker Cup. Sir James would also take up the position of club vice president the following year. While 1917 records show that the football team secured a notable win against the public schools team, the hockey team was unable to hold any matches, due to the number of players it had on active military service. The ensuing years saw the membership of the club grow to around 270, and the club's executive and committee securing more Indian members. These members included the Maharajas of Cooch Behar, Kapuritala and Patiala, to name a few. It also included leading businessmen such as Sir Dorabji Tata, a key figure in the development of the Tata Group. With the end of World War I in 1918, the club appeared to be going from strength to strength. Clouds, however, were looming on the horizon, requiring it to take decisive action to assure its long-term survival. May 2016. Indian Gymkhana's senior teams have come together at the club's annual hockey dinner. Chairing proceedings is Simon Mason, the ex-England and GB three-time Olympian hockey goalkeeper, and now playing for one of Indian Gymkhana's hockey teams. The event celebrates the hockey section's season, boasting 4 senior men's teams, in addition to a veterans team that has again been crowned national champions. The team contains several ex-international players, who between them have represented England, Wales, Great Britain and Kenya. This includes 2-time Great British Olympian and 1988 Olympic gold medalist Kulbir Bora, who started his journey in the UK with Indian Gymkhana, and who now both continues to play and coach at the club.
This is the 3rd year running that we've actually won the national championship again. So it's been a privilege being involved with the Super Events. I'd like to say thank you to the club for our support that we had on away matches. It was just unbelievable, some of the guys who've travelled with us. So thank you very much indeed.
So next up on to the men's 4th 11, and Captain Siddharth is here to come up and say a few words.
Hi everyone, just a quick mention about the courts. It's a youth setup that we've got in the force, so we've got a lot of youngsters and also our senior members who are the backbone of the team. We've had a pretty good season actually. Out of the kind of 4 kind of tournaments we were in, we came 3rd in the league, we won the trophy league, we won the playoffs in our league, and we won the playoffs in the trophy league, so not bad. 3 out of 4 is not bad.
The hockey dinner also celebrates the success of the club's women's first team, whose impressive record speaks for itself.
We played 24, we won 21, we drew 3, lost 0. I think that speaks volumes. So, wait for it, goals for 114, goals against 9. The ladies won their division clear 10 points, and I think that's an absolute fantastic achievement.
Now just to recap, our under 14 boys won their league, our under 16 boys made the regional semi-finals, a number of our players made Tier 1, Tier 2, JRPC, all of the Junior England performance programme levels, which for some of them is the first time that's happened. So actually I think it's worth pausing just to congratulate our juniors, so a round of applause to them.
As the presentations come to an end, attendees enjoy an Indian dinner and let their hair down, bringing the curtain down on the 2015-16 season.
I always say this, put your hands in the air like you just don't care. We're gonna go mad, ain't crazy. Put them up in the air, put them up in the air, put them up in the air. You don't need to sit down and dance.
Summer 1920. The Indian Gymkhana cricket team are readying to play at its Acton ground. Among the spectators present were a number of distinguished guests, invited by the club to encourage financial donations. Indian Gymkhana were at that time in negotiation with Mill Hill Park Cricket Club on purchasing the site, having promised the landlord a purchase deposit on completion of the game. The landlord, however, interrupted the coin toss, demanding that payment be made ahead of the game. As tempers rose, the landlord, accompanied by 7 burly men, unceremoniously ejected the teams off the pitch. The Indian Gymkhana Club's anger and humiliation was compounded by the incident being witnessed by the affluent guests in attendance. This event provoked an indignant response from the Indian High Commission and the Indian community more generally, strengthening calls for the club to secure an alternative ground. Leasing suitable grounds proved difficult, however, with the number of sports clubs in London growing and competition for space intensifying. James Marshall, of Hounslow Library Local Studies, explains what the local area was like in the early 20th century.
There had been factories in this area before the First World War, notably the Pears soap factory at Isleworth, which produced a brand of soap known worldwide. But the building of the Great West Road in the mid-1920s created a corridor of new Art Deco factories stretching from Gillette Corner down to Chiswick Roundabout, which brought a different sort of labour to that which had existed before the First World War, industrial labour rather than agricultural work. As well as housing and the development of the Art Deco factories, some of the land which had previously been market gardening land was put to use for leisure facilities. The large companies who'd come here to build factories wanted sports grounds where their employers could exercise play at the weekends. Other organisations such as colleges and universities also wanted sports grounds in our area because there was land available which was no longer being used for market gardening.
The incident at the Mill Hill Park Cricket Club site convinced Indian Gymkhana that the only course of action open to it was to purchase its own grounds. T.B.W. Ramsay, a barrister at law practising at the Privy Council, and Lord Hawke made an appeal for £15,000 for the purchase and development of suitable grounds for the club. Affluent donors in India responded to the appeal, including 1,000 guineas from the Gaikwar of Baroda and £1,000 from Sir Dorabji Tata. Following an arduous search, a 16-acre site was identified in Osterley, Middlesex, costing some £6,560. The Middlesex Chronicle, dated Saturday 14th of May 1921, carried a story reporting the acquisition of the site by the club and the club's ongoing struggle to secure donations. The report also highlights that the club's now groundsman W. Adcock had undertaken to provide a cricket pitch and 9 tennis courts on the site within weeks of its acquisition. A tall undertaking, given the site was used as an orchard prior to its sale. Meanwhile, the drive for donations had raised £3,000, well down on the £15,000 being sought. It was at this time that Maharaja Sir Bhupinder Singh of Patiala stepped forward to act as a guarantor for the purchase price, should funds not materialise through the appeal. A club record at the time recalls this moment.
The club, however, was never without its good friends and His Highness, the Maharaja of Patiala, when the position was explained to him with characteristic generosity, intimated he would provide the balance of the money required for the purchase of the ground if it did not arrive in time from other subscribers. Thus it was that, at the critical moment, that His Royal Highness saved the club, and his name will always be revered.
For the first time in its history, Indian Gymkhana's roots were firmly planted, and its efforts starting to bear fruit, fittingly on grounds previously used as an orchard. But who was the Maharaja of Patiala, and why did he step in to help? Born in 1891 in Patiala, a city in the northern Indian state of Punjab, the young Bhupinder Singh attended an independent boarding school in Lahore, now in Pakistan. He succeeded his father, Maharaja Rajendra Singh, as Maharaja in 1900, aged just 9, after his father's unexpected death following a riding accident. A council of regency, however, ruled in his name until he took partial powers shortly before his 18th birthday and assumed full powers shortly thereafter. Now Maharaja, Bhupinder Singh served in the military on tours in France, Belgium, Italy and Palestine during the First World War, and represented India at the League of Nations in 1925. By this time, he was also known equally for his extravagances, the betterment of his subjects and social reform, and his passion for sport, which he had inherited from his father. His cricket and polo teams, Patiala 11 and Patiala Tigers, were among the best in India, and he captained the Indian cricket team that visited England in 1911, also playing 27 first-class cricket matches between 1915 and 1937. During the 1926-27 season, Bhupinder Singh also played as a member of the Marylebone Cricket Club in London. The Maharaja was highly decorated both in India and in Britain. Bhupinder Singh's privileged position and his passion for sport made him a willing supporter of the Indian Gymkhana Club cause. Having moved on to its new grounds, 1921 club records show the club had to overcome some early challenges.
That season cricket could not be played on the new ground for lack of water for the pitch and for the dressing accommodation, while tennis was more or less moribund from similar causes. By the end of the year, however, a good water, gas and drainage system had been installed. A pavilion had been erected with 4 dressing rooms, washing and other conveniences, a small tea room and a kitchen.
The club's annual general meeting brings together its management committee and members to take stock of the past 12 months and to provide an overview of plans for the coming year. In attendance are the club president, Professor Nathu Rampuri, Senior Vice President Dr. Rami Ranger, and the club secretary, Sutanta Kumar, affectionately and respectfully known as Uncle Sonny by younger club members. The meeting is started with a 2-minute silence to mark the passing of Lord Noon in October 2015. In addition to being a successful businessman and peer of the House of Lords, Lord Noon was a leading supporter and financial donor to the club for many years, having also served as its senior vice president.
Unfortunately, I'm one of the hockey boys, driving section, and they are now going to organize Centenary at the club. Over 60, England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland, and our club going to play here in August bank holiday. So anyone around, please come up there.
Professor Nathpuri, I'm president of the Indian Gymkhana Club, and have been here for 25 years as president. I was invited by Lord Noon. He came one day to Nottingham and asked me to visit, and I'm still here. I think initially it was a place where Indians could come and play. Slowly people started using it. It had lots of land and plenty of grounds. And every time teams came from India and other countries also, they'll come and play here, especially cricket teams. Cricket and hockey used to be important at that time.
Today, the club is used to host all types of events. Each year, the Indian Festival of Holi is celebrated here. The Festival of Colour, as it's known, celebrates the triumph of good over evil, with the well-wishers covering each other in colourful powder. As the celebrations continue, the club's committee get together to discuss the very significant year ahead.
About at the moment 200. 200 people who come every week to do exercises. Hockey, which is about 7-8 teams.
In addition to preliminary discussions on a centenary dinner later in the year, the committee is asked to take a decision on the club's centenary logo.
So I'll come back to that in 1 second. Gentlemen, as new members, please tell us, what do you think?
This one is fine.
Which one? This one?
By 1921, news archives and club records also show that His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales was also taking an interest in the club, writing to Lord Hawke to express his satisfaction on the progress the club was making. On the 24th of May 1922, Indian Gymkhana's new ground was formally opened by Lord Hawke. At this time, 2 cricket pitches and 4 tennis courts had been laid down at the site. Records also suggest that hockey was now being played on the site, with the pitches being hired out to raise additional club funds. The early history of the club saw a number of distinguished figures take up positions in the club. These included Major General His Highness Sir Ganga Singh Bahadur, the Maharaja of Patiala, His Highness Sir Sayajiroa Gaikwad III Bahadur, the Maharaja of Baroda, and Sir Dorabji J. Tata, to name but a few. In 1922, Lady Mahabai Tata became the first female member of the Indian Gymkhana Club, some 75 years before the MCC accepted its first women members. Born in 1879 in Bombay, Lady Mahabai was a pioneer of the women's movement in India. Possessing a natural talent for sport, she won over 60 prizes in tournaments. Stanley Reed, former editor of the Times of India, recounted.
Mahabai was of medium height, of regular feature, clear-cut and clear-eyed, with that flush through the faintly tinted live skin which painters tell us is the perfect complexion. She was the most striking figure even in the great gatherings of Bombay society. She was well endowed with brains, learned and accomplished. She was devoted to all outdoor games, a proficient tennis player. She was equally at home in all forms of exercise.
Not content with being a lady of leisure, Lady Mahabai actively promoted education and well-being of Indian women, helping form the National Council of Women and actively working as a member of the Indian Red Cross Society. In 1919, she was given the honour of Commander of the British Empire from King George V for her role in raising contributions towards the war effort. Lady Tata was married to Sir Dorabji J. Tata, who was himself a founding member and vice president of the Indian Gymkhana Club in its early years. By 1923, the Indian Gymkhana Club continued to make progress both on and off the field, albeit slowly in regards to the £15,000 funding it sought. In 1925, Her Highness the Maharani of Cooch Behar promised to gift the club a cricket challenge shield as a memorial to her late husband. The shield arrived in September 1926 and graces the walls of the current clubhouse. The year also saw a cricket match between the club and the office of the Indian High Commissioner. Meanwhile, a cricket match with the MCC had by now become an annual fixture for Indian Gymkhana, alongside the annual Walker Lawn Tennis Cup tournament. The hockey team also played a few matches in 1926, beating many of the best teams, as the club's reputation on the field continued to develop. Its financial struggles, however, persisted. By 1926, only £8,549 of the £15,000 appealed for had been raised. With pressure mounting to service its loans, the club appealed with a greater sense of urgency.
Trophies, cups, tournaments.
As spring draws to a close, the club's adult football section hold their annual dinner. The event is attended not only by the team and its management, but also their families. It is also attended by a number of individuals who've worked tirelessly behind the scenes to get the football section to where it is today. Also present is Jarnail Singh, a Metropolitan Police officer and the first Sikh to officiate in the Football League. Over the years, football has become popular at the club, and the team has notched up some notable successes, including as County Cup champions. With 2016 being an Olympic year, the club is hosting a visit by the Indian national women's hockey team as it prepares to compete in Rio, following a 36-year absence from the Games. The visit provides an opportunity for both the senior and youth players at the club to ask the visitors questions and to enjoy an Indian meal.
When you're playing together, you are a team, you are one. You know, it doesn't matter about your color, religion or race or whatever. So the sports is very important to bring people closer to one another.
Over the years, Indian Gymkhana has played host to many international cricket teams, and this year is no exception. As part of the Centenary events, the cricket section is playing the Nepal national cricket team. Indian Gymkhana wins the toss and elects to bowl. Nepal quickly get to work, posting 162 runs for 7 wickets in its 20-over innings. Despite their best efforts and some aggressive batting, the Indian Gymkhana team falls short of the target set, posting 142 for 10 wickets. Following the game, the Nepal team is hosted to a dinner, attended by the Member of Parliament for the area.
My sons came here to play cricket and also to do football training. We have lots of wonderful functions here in this function suite, and upstairs there's the bar and the dining area, which is obviously a local hub for the community.
International cricket returns to Indian Gymkhana. This is our centenary year, so this year we hosted Nepal's national team to come and play at Indian Gymkhana. It was a tradition of Indian Gymkhana hosting international teams. In the past we have an India team, we had Pakistan come and play, and we also had Australia who have played matches against our club.
Thank you. As the summer draws to a close, the club's youth cricket section hold their annual award presentation. Today, cricket continues to run strong through the club's veins. Many of the youth players will understand that this year's awards mark a significant milestone for the club, but few will know how the passion and determination of a few 100 years earlier continue to benefit them today.
And as the most successful West London club, we hope to improve and to succeed in further sports fields.
In 1927, the club committee announced that they had been able to reduce the club's debt to banks to £1,660. This debt, however, and general discontent with the club's slow pace of progress was simmering away amongst both the club's executive and among its rank-and-file membership. Criticism of the outstanding bank debt and about neglect of some of the club's facilities continued to grow. While Lord Hawke agreed to remain as president, older Indians became members and were given a stronger voice in the club's running. Shortly after, the total bank debt was paid off, with Sudharabji Tata, K.M. Pardee, a committee member, and K.B. Mavlankar, the honorary secretary, agreeing to lend £1,600 to the club at an exceptionally low rate of interest. Further changes included the club's secretarial and catering duties being taken over by Indian members, thereby reducing running costs. Enhancements were also made to the club's pavilion, which was fitted with a bar, a kit room, and lockers. Records show that in addition to Indian and British members coming together to play sport, the club was also being used by the Indian High Commission to help engender stronger relationships further afield. In 1927, the Indian High Commissioner Sir Atul and Lady Chatterjee invited the Australian House and Indian Gymkhana cricket teams to their residence, alongside some distinguished guests from India, Australia and elsewhere. The power of sport and the unique unifying role being played by the Indian Gymkhana Club in Britain was clear. It would remain at the core of the club's ethos over the following 90 years. The club continued to make gradual progress until the onset of World War II and the introduction of rationing in Britain. During these years, activity at the club was understandably curtailed, and it offered up its grounds to the local council to bolster agricultural production for the war effort.
The impact of World War II was felt almost immediately across the country with the introduction of rationing. Food shortages became very serious during the war, and the government did everything it could to make the best use of available land to grow additional food at home. Allotments were more valuable than ever, and some sports grounds were ploughed up to help the situation on the home front.
In 1945, the country celebrated the end of World War II. VE street parties were held around the UK, including in Hounslow's Lambton Park in May of that year. The years following World War II brought with them a renewed hope and the resumption of leisure activities. The post-war years also brought historic change, not only to Europe but also to India, with Britain relinquishing its rule in 1947 and granting independence to a newly divided India, a day celebrated on the club grounds each year.
You form only 2% of this country's population, but you contribute 6% to its GDP.
This year's Indian Independence Day event is attended by British parliamentarians, peers and the Indian High Commissioner. The year's guest of honour being the visiting Indian Union Minister of Food and Public Distribution, Ram Vilas Paswan.
₹2 किलो गेहूं, ₹3 किलो चावल, ₹1 किलो मोटा अनाज दे रहे हैं, जिसका यहाँ पाउंड में देखेंगे तो कुछ नहीं है। जो हमारे
8 to 10,000 Indian people are come together as one, and they celebrate their Independence Day in perfect harmony. And this is like a festival atmosphere. There's free food is being served, and music is there, and the High Commissioner is here. So it's amazing that we as a community come together as one. So that's one.
The event draws thousands of people to the club's grounds who enjoy a day of music and performance, and more than 3,000 people taking part in a successful Guinness World Record attempt to create a 370 square metre Indian flag in paint. Each year, visitors enjoy a festival-like atmosphere and free fresh food, provided at the many stalls around the grounds, courtesy of local businesses.
Well, I think the Indian Gymkhana is a very important institution. It's 100 years, and it's an institution which is open to all communities, etc. And I think it has been encouraging this sort of cohesiveness. It's been home to a lot of important events through the decades, and I wish it very good luck in the years to come.
As the summer draws to a close, a number of home nations masters hockey teams have been invited to take part in a mini-weekend tournament to mark the club's centenary year. The year also sees the club host the Barbados national hockey team.
I'm very lucky to captain this team. We've got fantastic players in our team. We've got Kulbir Bora, who's a gold medalist. We've got Sutikare, and he's been captain of England. We've got Santa Bansal, who's playing for England. He plays for Masters Hockey. We've got Bali Walia, who plays for Wales. And of course, I also play for Wales as well. We're proud to represent Indian Gymkhana on all these national teams. And as part of the celebration, our centenary celebration, we put together a Masters tournament. So we invited 5 teams all together, and we've got England playing here, we've got Wales playing here, Midlands, Surrey and South, and it's over a 2-day period, everybody's having a fantastic time.
The end of World War II meant a resumption of sports activity at Indian Gymkhana, which for a short period moved to a slightly more stable financial footing, seeing the erection of a new cricket pavilion that was officially opened by the then visiting Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru in 1953. This period also saw a growth in the South Asian population in the surrounding area, driven by the need for immigrant working-class labour in the local factories to help drive the expansion of the then London airport, which was subsequently renamed as Heathrow Airport in 1966.
People arrived from all over the world to take up the slack in the West London labour market. There were jobs available in manufacturing and jobs available at Heathrow Airport itself. Sometimes the jobs were dirty and unpleasant jobs that English workers no longer wanted. There was also an impact on the local housing supply and some intercommunal tension between the existing residents of the local streets and the incoming residents.
In 1965, Osterley residents signed a petition to prevent the construction of flats and offices on the Indian Gymkhana site to house officials from the Indian High Commission. The project was expected to cost the Indian government some £700,000 and would also have seen some improvements made to the facilities at Indian Gymkhana. Local residents argued that the development would change the very nature of the local area and that it was contrary to a system of integration. Permission for the development was therefore withheld. Over the years, Indian Gymkhana has continued to evolve, both to cater for its older members and to attract younger members. The introduction of youth sections across its football, hockey and cricket activity and martial arts has ensured new blood into the club, while activities like yoga and new gym facilities bring in new older members from the local area and communities. Each year, the club arranges a club open day to attract new younger members. This year is no exception, with football, hockey and cricket sessions taking place. The event coincides with the delivery of the club's Centenary apparel, which is made available to attendees to purchase. With summer drawing to a close, organising a Centenary dinner is proving challenging, alongside the delivery of the many other activities that have taken place this year. There is an old Indian tradition of giving monetary gifts of an odd number, such as 21 or 101 rupees. The reasons for this are not wholly clear, but many believe it stems from the extra 1 unit signifying additional luck and prosperity to the receiver. It seems fitting, therefore, that the Indian Gymkhana's Centenary dinner actually took place in November 2017, its 101st year. Following months of planning, the Centenary dinner is just 2 days away, with the organising committee expecting hundreds of guests. Volunteers at the club are working frantically, setting up the function room and temporarily erected marquee. Hospitality and food play a central role in Indian culture, and over the years, the club has become renowned for both, with visiting teams invariably staying for a post-match curry and a drink. Indeed, providing all visiting youth teams a free curry after a game is now both an established tradition at the club and something visitors look forward to. So it is no surprise that guest expectations of the Centenary event are high. As last-minute preparations continue, guests start to arrive at the club's black tie centenary dinner. These include Kenneth Clarke, the former UK Home Secretary and Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Lord Paul, a leading business tycoon, philanthropist, and former Deputy Speaker of the House of Lords. As guests mingle in the function suite, catering staff work quickly to prepare the evening's food and drinks. The guests are led into the event marquee by a troupe of traditional Indian drum players. These guests include MPs from the local areas, the residing Indian High Commissioner, and Sir Vince Cable MP, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Joining them is the keynote speaker for the evening, Kapil Dev, the former Indian cricket captain, regarded as one of the all-time great all-rounders. The compere for the evening's proceedings is Simon Mason, who introduces a host of speakers and entertainment, which guests enjoy over dinner.
You're always welcome. Thank you very much.
Behind the scenes, catering staff prepare to serve guests.
When you want to grow up, you want to be.
Following dinner, a number of key guests recount their history with the club and their memories.
And in 100 years, I very strongly believe that this club has set a very high bar for how we work together, live together, play together, and how we set a different standard about how, across nations, we work together for a better world as well.
As the dinner nears to a close, Kapil Dev delivers the evening's keynote address in typically humorous fashion.
My office said, Vikram called and he said, they invited you for the Gymkhana Club 100 years. I said, what am I going to do there? They said, no, you have to be key speaker. I said, I charge hell of a lot of money. I charge £100,000. So they said, they will pay you. I said, fine, I'll come with my family. So thank you for paying me £100,000. So if you have a time to listen, you paid the money, so listen, or you better listen. I'm really delighted and just want to say, you people are a gem. You are wonderful people. You kept the tradition going and keep up the spirit. That's very, very important. Remember.
During his address, he recounts the first time he came to Indian Gymkhana as a visiting, budding Indian cricketer, and the sense of belonging and home it gave him. In closing, he remarks on how players of subcontinent heritage, born and prospering overseas, are viewed in India.
When any Indian or Pakistani or Sri Lankan of that subcontinent person come and play for England, we feel very proud. Great memory. I remember all those things when I used to come here. In this club was different. A friend of mine said, that is true. You come to Gymkhana, you have whiskey and vodka together, you know what is Gymkhana is. Lovely to see all my friends, enjoyed every moment.
As some guests start to leave, others continue to enjoy the evening. A short film cannot do justice to the story of the Indian Gymkhana Club in London and its 1,000 active members today. These individuals and families all have their own personal life stories, but for many, these stories are inextricably intertwined with that of the Indian Gymkhana Club. Without them, the story of this club would not only have been far shorter, but also much poorer. Be they players, trainers, administrators, sports fans, social or committee members, it is their commitment that ensures future generations can continue to enjoy the shade of trees planted a century ago.